So just for a quick introduction, Erika Ruane is with the City of Charlotte Office of Sustainability, and she will give us our first presentation. So Erika, whenever you're ready.
All right. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about EVs and infrastructure. And again, my name is Erika Ruane. I'm the Energy and Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Charlotte's Office of Sustainability and Resilience. We've added on to it. We keep getting more work. I don't know why. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our electric vehicle fleet makeup, our infrastructure, and some cool projects, and then our policies that are not as sexy as the infrastructure and electric vehicles, but are doing a lot of work. So our electric vehicles. In our light duty fleet, we have 38 EVs, and of course we have future plans for more. The picture at the bottom is just, some of the EVs that we have. We've got Kia Niros, we've got Bolts, although the 2019 ones were taken off for just a little bit. We've got Leafs, and we are hoping to, or not hoping, but we will be purchasing the new Ford Lightning EVs or electric trucks, hopefully I think in the spring. So we've got some budget set aside for those. Our departments are really excited about that, which is really interesting because, over the years we've had some pushback with departments. Lately it hasn't been so much pushback. And now they're like, hey, we see that electric Lightnings, electric trucks are coming down the pipe. Like, we can buy those, right? I keep getting asked, like, are we allowed to buy Teslas? Are we, what can we buy? So that's been really great to see over the past 5 or so years. As far as heavy duty goes, the airport currently has 5 electric buses. Those are Proterras, and they're on the circular route at the airport. They've got these really awesome wraps on them. This is an actual picture of them, not just like a posed, well, I mean, it's posed, but not just like a stock image. Those are actually them. And they have plans to purchase 5 buses with infrastructure every year until 2024. So they'll have 25 electric buses when everything's said and done. So they'll be completely electric, which is really exciting. Not only is that great just to have in one of our departments, but it happens to be at the airport, which is, a place for tourists. When they come, that's the first thing some of them see. And it's a really great message that we send, and we really like that a lot. We currently don't have any fully electric buses in our transit system department, but we did win recently a grant, a DOE grant, and so we will be piloting 3 different types of buses. It's Gillig, BYE, and New Flyer. So we already have, like I said, Proterras at the airport that we can test, but we're trying those other 3 manufacturers, and those should be here by the end of the year. So we're excited to see what works best for us, and see how we can expand electric buses in our transit system. As far as infrastructure, the city owns 108 level 2 chargers. We have 200 ports, so some of these are dual port, some are single, and most of them are open to the public. About 90 of them are open to the public. The other ones are strictly for fleet purposes, and they are, behind fences or something at city-owned facilities. The ones that are open to the public are free to charge at. This is, first of all, to encourage, education and adoption of electric vehicles in our community, but it's also because, we can't charge for electricity. But this is a question that continuously comes up about, what's the tipping point? Because, we pay for that electricity now, but, if we continue to install more chargers, which of course is the plan, what's the point at which, we can't afford it anymore? But for right now, they are free as long as somebody has, one of those scan cards or an app on their phone to unlock it. A lot of them, well, not a lot of them, but some of them are in parking lots. So when I say free to charge, I mean, we don't charge for the electricity, but some of them are in parking lots that, you have to pay to get inside. So I just want to make that clear too. But having 108 of these is really exciting for us. We have plans this year to install more, probably at least, I think it's about 25 that we want to install before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. So, we are really doing this here. Most of those will be to support our fleet, but any of them that could also be made public will be made public as well. We also have one DC fast charger, and this is housed at our fire station headquarters. This is not open to the public because we need it for fleet purposes. Oops. And then a little bit of innovative infrastructure that we have. We have 4 EV arcs, and this was won through a grant through the CFAT grant, Clean Fuels Advanced Technology, and our community really, really loves these. We actually have community associations, neighborhood associations that call and ask for one to be moved in their communities, which I think is really cool. We are in the process of moving a couple of them right now to some locations that we feel like would be really great to have them in. But we love that we get requests for them because the communities are like, hey, we've got EVs and we want to be able to charge at them. So please, can you move this over there? These are level 2 and they're solar powered. They're mobile. And by mobile, I mean, it is possible to move them, but that is not easy. So when we move them, we want to make sure that they're staying somewhere for at least 6 months, but we're hoping more for about a year. So we will be moving 2 of them, like I said. We're really interested in moving them into our corridors of opportunity, which are just districts that we've deemed corridors of opportunity. They are historically underserved, predominantly African American, and we really want to increase education and awareness around purchasing EVs in this area. Equity is a huge focus of ours when it, in general, but also when it comes to EVs and infrastructure. So we want to make sure that they're put in locations that are equitable. We also are currently trying to get a pilot off and running, and we call it Pole Vault. And it's a grant pilot that UNC Charlotte won from the Department of Energy, and we are working with them to help through the process of getting approvals. But they will be installing 2 of these level 2 systems, and they're attached to either street lights or utility poles. And it's a really innovative project because there's no there's installation, but there's no like ground cutting or anything like that. They are attached to a utility pole. Well, ours are on utility poles, but they can also be on street lights depending on depending on Duke Energy, and if they say that they can, because they can accept the extra capacity. So we're trying to put them in right-of-way areas. So this is, utilizing existing parking. Obviously, there are a lot of approvals because the city owns the right-of-way and has never done anything like this as far as approving a project for that area. So we are going through this as best that we can. But we're hoping that once this first headache is done and we are able to go through it, that we will be able to install more of these. We're not sure who will own these units after the pilot, but I think it's either going to be, I guess it's one of 3. Either the city will own them, Duke Energy will own them, or there might be an opportunity for a private company to come in and own them, but we're not sure yet. The pilot has not been approved yet, so I can't show a picture of what it could possibly look like. But so I shared as much as I can, but I'm happy to answer questions about that because I know that that's something that's really interesting to people, and I look forward to sharing best practices once the pilot is over. As far as infrastructure next steps go, because we have 108 chargers, they're mostly ChargePoint. I think about 4 to 5 of them aren't ChargePoint chargers, but we don't have a citywide contract. So we're working on standardization of language. We obviously are the city and need to make sure that we're doing all of the RFP processes correctly. So we are working on standardization of language and determining, who we want to partner with and what types of equipment we need to support not only our fleet, but the public, the increase in electric vehicles that the public is purchasing. We're also deciding whether or not for our personal fleet, we want to have networked chargers or connected chargers. I'll talk a little bit more about this in policies, but we are using certain policies to determine decisions that we make that are based off of data. So we really, have preferred a networked and connected charger in the past. However, we are purchasing electric vehicles at a rapid rate, and when we can get the money for vehicles, we don't always have the money for infrastructure to support that. So we are, talking through our options about, can we get a non-connected charger for the time being and then upgrade that when we need to. But obviously it doesn't give us the data that we are looking for. So all of this, the increase in infrastructure and electric vehicles and some of our data-driven decisions, this is all based on the SEAP. This is the Strategic Energy Action Plan that the council unanimously passed in December of 2018. I'm sorry, I can't see all of the comments or the in the chat right now, but I'm sure somebody will help me out with that in a minute. So we passed our Strategic Energy Action Plan, and this has goals for not only municipal operations, but citywide as well. So for citywide, we want to become a low carbon city by 2050 with each person emitting less than 2 tons of CO2 equivalent annually. And when we did our baseline for 2015, we were at about 12 tons. So that is a long way to go, but we have great community members and organizations helping us reach those goals. As far as our municipal goals, we have a goal to source all of our fuel for fleet and facilities from zero carbon sources by 2030. So that deadline is quickly approaching, and we do know that any new vehicle that we purchase today will probably still be in service by 2030. So these decisions are being made around the SEAP, which is really great. We also have the Sustainable and Resilient Fleet Policy, which supports the SEAP. This has requirements for electric vehicles. Basically, it's pretty strong. And what it says is that if there is a vehicle that you want to purchase and there is an EV option for it, you must purchase that EV option. The only way that you can have, the only way that you cannot purchase the EV option for that is if the city manager says it's okay. So that makes it really difficult for somebody to not purchase that. We do have different tiers. So, we do believe in the diversity of fuel, but we also know that, propane is not a zero carbon source. But, we are open to bridging the gap while we have to for right now. But it makes it really difficult. This policy makes it really difficult to not purchase the EV if there's an option for it. It also has a requirement for charging infrastructure that says that if you're installing it, it has to be networked and connected, which again, we are looking at. We know, we're not perfect when we make these policies. And while we do want to collect the data and see, what infrastructure we need to support our vehicles and where these vehicles are going and how much electricity they're using and things like that, we do understand that it's more important right now to purchase the vehicles when we can. And if we need to purchase some infrastructure that's not necessarily connected or networked, then, we can do that right now. We do have a couple of facilities that have like one leaf. So they are just doing a trickle charge. So we don't have any stations for that, and they're just plugged into a 110. So obviously we need to upgrade that, but we do think it's more important to purchase the vehicle and then have the infrastructure come out. As far as, we also have the automatic vehicle locator, our AVL policy, and this supports our Sustainable and Resilient Fleet Policy and the SEAP as well. And this just says that each vehicle that we have, whether or not it's electric or ICE will have a little telematic unit in it, and we can use that to see where our vehicles are driving. It makes it a lot easier to tell a department if they want to purchase another ICE vehicle. We can look at the vehicle that they're looking to replace, and we can say, okay, you drive X number of miles, it's within this range, it's not a take-home vehicle, it goes to these facilities that also have infrastructure, you could have an electric vehicle. And they can't really say anything about it. Like I said, we do have really supportive departments. It's not often that I have to say, no, I'm telling you, you have to buy this vehicle. So they are really supportive about it, and they, for the most part, enjoy the new EVs and want to try some new things. But this policy really makes it easy to look at the data and make smart, data-driven decisions, not just, telling people we want you to have this vehicle, but we want to make sure that we are not compromising the city's safety at all, or our resources and our ability to still meet the community's needs. Oh, that's my presentation. Sorry, I thought maybe I had something else there, but I did talk about everything. I think I can look into the chat now.
Yes, so thank you so much, Erika. And what we'll do is we'll take questions at the end of both presentations just to make sure that we have enough time for everyone.
Yeah, okay.
And so I'm going to go ahead and take control real quick, and then we'll head to our next presentation. So next we have Andrew Hinz, and I do apologize if I if I mispronounced that, and Tyler Dewey with the Duke University Alternative Fuels Transportation Team. So I will go ahead and hand it over to y'all. And folks, please feel free to continue to put questions into the chat, and we will make sure that those get answered at the end. All right. Tyler, are you able to take control?
Yes, I've taken control.
Great. Okay.
Thank you so much. And today we actually also have Carl DePinto, the director of our Parking and Transportation Services. So I think we're here talking about the electric fleet initiatives at Duke University, particularly at Duke University and Transit. And so as we go through, slides are progressing. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today, and I'll turn it over to our director, Carl.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Today we'll go through a few key things about electric vehicles here at Duke Transit. Duke not only supports the university, but also the medical center, and being one of the larger medical centers in the state. We do have a large portfolio that we manage, which include set fixed routes as well as park and ride routes, based on some offsites that we have a lot of our staff parking on. So number one, we'll talk about, Tyler will discuss our climate action plan. And what we want to talk about in that is just some key initiatives that we have in place. We are members of our sustainability group. However, this is not the sustainability group. Again, this is the parking and transportation team. Why we chose electric buses, we'll get a bit involved in that discussion. Some stuff on our charging infrastructure. We have Andrew here who can assist in some of that. He is our technical expert and our operations manager who has managed a lot of that charging infrastructure and our projects and our setup when we received our first electric buses. And then we'll talk a bit about performance, which includes a little example of some of the routes, including our most popular route that our electric buses run on, and then a bit about just future expansion on where we're going with our electric fleet.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. So we want to set the context for Duke University and our electric fleet initiatives. So I'll talk a little bit about Duke's climate action plan and the history of our climate action plan. So back in 2009, Duke set an ambitious goal to be carbon neutral by 2024. So that is a pretty aggressive timeline with 15 years to transfer over to carbon neutrality. Back in 2009, transportation as part of Duke University was responsible for 21% of emissions. In that first climate action plan, university set a goal to begin sort of green fleet replacement. So as vehicles life cycled out, we'd start replacing them with greener vehicles. There was really an eye on the transit side at that time to let's bring in some hybrid articulated buses. On our most popular route, we're moving a lot of students and at the same time, so we needed those big buses. Recently, there was a 2019 update to that climate action plan, and for the Parking and Transportation Services Department, we actually have met our goals that were set out in 2009. So we reduced the age of the fleet by 33%, we've increased fuel efficiency by 25%, and all those gains were made actually before we introduced the 100% electric buses. Certainly, we want to continue pushing the envelope. We want to continue progressing. So we saw, those 100% electric buses as a way to go even beyond the hybrid buses that we were running.
Okay, I'll get in and discuss why we chose to buy electric buses for our fleet. And there are a few key reasons why we made that decision. This bus that you see here on the screen is the first round that we've purchased. Again, these are Proterra buses. We did, number one, review our portfolio of routes and making sure that, number one, that these buses could handle a lot of the not only conditions, meaning hills and inclines on our routes, however, the amount of runtime and the capacity that our vehicles hold. Throughout the day, our bus system is a very, very busy bus system. We have 2 campuses, not counting the medical campus, which we move a lot of students in between. Our east to west bus, which is called our C1, is our most popular route, and that runs on an annual basis. On a normal annual year, we move about 1.7 million people on that one particular route, and that's only in academic year, so that covers about 8 months out of the year. So within a short time frame, we do move a lot of people through that route. And these buses were tasked to start on that fleet, and we purchased 2 out the gate, and we have those concurrently running with our hybrid articulated buses, which are those large buses with the accordions in the middle on campus, and they run every day, 7 days a week, and moving not only our students, but our faculty, our staff, our affiliates, and our medical team members as well. So part of the reason why we looked at the electric fleet was, number one, to reduce the age of our fleet. When we started looking at this, our average fleet age was about 8 years, and we were looking to get that reduced. So we were looking for a lot more of a solution that would be a lot more cost beneficial and reduce emissions overall. So a clear choice winner was the electric fleet, but we were one of the early adopters and one of the first universities on the East to actually receive the bus and definitely to place an order. So we came out the gate with 2 buses, put them en route, and have been very, very successful overall with its performance. We put these buses on our routes, one of our key routes, to, number one, make sure that they are out there and saving some of that fuel efficiency, as well as cutting our emissions. So they are out there for a good amount of time. We have them charging on an overnight basis, but they are run mostly a lot of the day and cover probably our heaviest load, which are, as you can imagine with the university, our class change time, which are truly, truly key for us to make sure that students can get where they need to be, especially around the core times of the day. Our next slide, we'll talk a bit about our charging infrastructure and what we've developed with the help of Andrew's team and our facilities group is an area where we can park these buses, which most people call like a bus yard. However, it's next to our transit facility, and we've not only developed an area, but we've thought about the future of where our fleet is going and developed duct banks to support a lot of what we're doing in the future, which includes adding additional buses without doing a lot of electrical infrastructure work. So we've established a duct bank that could ultimately, we've split up the area to allot for 6 parking spaces on each side, and then allocated a duct bank that could hold approximately 14 charging stations. So we were thinking about the future and where we're going with our electric fleet and the charge time and the space utilization. So we've kind of mapped out an area, and since we only have currently 2, we're currently utilizing that space for some of our, which is predominant part of our fleet, our hybrid fleet, parking in those areas as well. But again, we thought about the future and where we're going with this in order to develop a plan. Our next our area is performance. So this is a 2-pronged area for us. We'll cover our routes, which I mentioned before, which is a popular route for us, and it's a 3.5-mile loop that we roughly run approximately 5 buses per day on, and it's called our C1, and it's about a 20-minute loop, and we run about 8 hours a day before charging. But this route runs from 7 a.m. till approximately after midnight. So it is one of our most popular routes, not only for a class destination for our students, but also for any kind of major sporting events, and also for a lot of our students to hit our major centers, including dining facilities. So we looked at this route when we studied our overall performance and wanted to make sure that we were these buses would be able to perform, and they've done pleasantly well for us around the time frame, including performing at peak capacity, where a lot of our capacity right now is in the very, very high 90s of a percentile. And then I'll talk a bit about future expansion. These are the 2 buses that we have in our fleet right now. We have 2 buses on order, and we're planning to receive them within the next 2 months. They are Proterra buses. We are looking at increased charging capacity, and as I mentioned before, we are planning for the future and trying to, number 1, lower the age of our fleet, and number 2, provide the best experience for our riders. So expanding our line and trying to move away from some of our older buses and trying to get some of the fuel efficiency out of our new buses and some cost savings on gasoline, on the electric fleet, as well as just operate more efficiently on the Duke Transit side is one of our major goals. We are members of our sustainability group, as I mentioned before. So these types of initiatives are in place. We do have license plate recognition for our enforcement team, and currently have a Prius and a Bolt in our lineup as well. So we not only look on the bus side of it, but also on the fleet side of it, and where we can be as green as possible on the electric side. Just to talk a bit about some of our charging stations, we do operate with ChargePoint, and we currently have 26 locations on campus where vehicles could be charged, and that's not only spread on the campus part, but also on the medical side as well. And I wanted to touch on that, as one of our major goals is electrification and where we can improve on that. And also, jumping into back over to buses, we have a bus tracking system, which a lot of our students use to track the buses, which is another quick way for our community to understand what time their buses are coming and what time they're leaving and when they'll get there. So a lot of people use that as well, which is a popular app included in our Duke suite of apps as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Carl. And that's our presentation. So we'll turn it back over to y'all, and we'll take any questions that people have.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyler, Andrew, and Carl. We really appreciate y'all sharing more about Duke's transit system. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions from our audience. Please feel free to utilize the chat function. And I believe that Sarah had put her number in the chat in case you're having some issues with it, because I know we've had a few technical issues today. So we've got a couple just to start with. I know Erika, I think, had been answering a few that were in the chat from earlier as well. But we'll go ahead and start with Charlotte. For municipalities that are just getting started with electric transportation initiatives, what should their initial focus be on?
So you're talking about internally, so to support their own fleet?
Yes, to support their own fleet, sorry.
So definitely, well, I don't know, as opposed to, education and awareness, infrastructure out for the community anyway. Definitely thinking about what are the easiest vehicles that can be replaced. So of course, there's always a list of replacements and the vehicles that really, really need to be replaced, and take a look. Obviously, if those are, light duty sedans, and they're not traveling very far, they don't have a lot of mileage, and they don't go very far, away from your area, those would be really good replacements. And then of course the infrastructure to support that. We all know that it's not a one-to-one, so you don't need, one port per vehicle that you have. And, I think I sort of touched on this, that we, in Charlotte, we sort of thought that we needed all of our infrastructure to be connected and networked, which, we still do prefer that. But if you're just starting out, you can buy a relatively cheap non-connected charger, and it can do pretty much whatever you need it to do, except for just, tell you some data. But you can sort of figure that out separately. So I think that would be the first step, is to just assess what vehicles you can replace with electric, and then buy some cheaper infrastructure to support that until you can have a whole plan for replacement and infrastructure.
Great, thanks for those considerations. So switching over to the Duke team, as transportation managers, has it been easier or more difficult than you expected to learn about the charging aspect of your transit bus electrification?
I can answer that question. This is Andrew. I don't think it hasn't really been much of a challenge of the charging aspect. The only issues we probably ran into is just not having the drivers plug them in all the way. Luckily, we're running a 60 kW charger. From a dead charge, you can get the bus back to 100% in 3 hours. With the 90 kWs coming in, it'll be a little bit less than that, like 2.5 hours. So, we'll see how things go, but this is our first time really, really running them now that students are back to 100%. So we'll have more information as we learn, but so far so good.
Mm-hmm. And somebody had asked when we introduced the bus, they were intended to be brought onto campus and online past spring, around January, February, March, but delays happened, and we have only started running them in the summer and fall.
Great, thank you. And just to quickly follow up on that, has there been a welcoming student reception to these buses, or has there been maybe any comments on them?
So overall, and this is Carl, we've had a great reception, not only from on the student side, but overall from the community side, including our employees and our on the university side and our medical side. Our sustainability group was also very excited about this opportunity. So, but the not only have we gotten a great reception, but even from the operator side, the employees have really expressed a great enjoyment of driving these buses versus a lot of our diesel or hybrid fleet.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So switching back over to Erika, how has the employee perspective of electric transportation evolved within the city of Charlotte? And I know you kind of briefly touched on it a little bit in some of your responses in the chat, but maybe focusing specifically on, were there a fair amount of skeptics who maybe now are more kind of in the EV boat?
Definitely. So there was a lot of pushback at first. And so it took a lot of massaging to, get people to try something new. Of course, right off the bat, you get things like, oh, well, I can't, I need a bigger trunk, or I need, I need to be able to pull some things. And we're like, well, let's talk to you about some torque that these EVs have that you probably didn't know about. So that was really cool. It was really more about getting them into the cars to try them out. So what we did was we have a motor pool where any city employee can check out vehicles, and we've got about 20 vehicles in this motor pool, and they were all ICE vehicles. And so if you're going to a meeting, across town or something, you can check out one of these vehicles and take it there. So we added and replaced some of the vehicles with electric vehicles. And at first, people did not want to try out these vehicles. But the more that they had to, because there was no other options or anything, the more comfortable people got with them. And I got a lot of messages saying that people loved these vehicles and they preferred them, and then they were fighting over them. And we also have a really great motor pool manager who would see, you have to fill out a form and say where you're going. And she was really good about putting people in the Leafs, because they were all Leafs at the time. But now we do have some bolts as well. But she was really good about putting the people that weren't going very far in the Leafs. And even though they requested another vehicle, she would put them in the Leafs. And so really it's just about, I know this is like a cliche, but getting butts in seats. And once they drive these, they're like, this is really cool. All right, I can do this. And then you have the fleet managers on the other side that are like not so sure. And then, once you show it to them and you show them that there are way less parts to deal with, and they're kind of fun and cool, they were on board too. So we don't have much pushback anymore. Now it's more of just like, I mentioned it before, but people are like, are we allowed to buy Teslas? Can if it's like something that we need, can we buy this? And that's something that we are going through. I wrote a memo about how we should be able to purchase luxury vehicles, and everybody was like, I'm not signing that. So we'll see. I know that there are departments across the United States that have Teslas, whether it's I think mostly police departments. But I think it would have to be a really good case, because the public perception of having your local government drive a Tesla when you don't have a Tesla is not great. But we're working on it.
That's really good to know, especially for maybe fleets that are thinking about kind of integrating some EVs in the future, and maybe kind of what some of those hurdles or barriers might be. So to grab one of the questions from the chat I saw for Duke, I do believe, let's see, are your charging stations shared with the Duke community members who drive to campus in an EV?
Yes. Many of them are. Some are reserved for students, faculty, and staff, but many of them are open to the public.
Yeah, so we have them kind of spread across our medical center and our university side. And so we have two types of parkers. We have permit holders, which are mostly people who are part of our teams here. And then we have transients. So we try to split that as evenly as possible across the portfolio of spots.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely good to know, especially for folks who are traveling in that area. So switching back to Erika, are there any benefits to the city's electrification efforts that may have surprised you or that you weren't expecting?
Trying to think that things that surprised me. I do get messages now that people are more interested in purchasing EVs, but I kind of thought that might happen. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very smart. No, but I mean, that was a shock that people like them as much as they do. And I mean, another shock is that people are some employees in our departments are really looking forward to heavy duty options. I know somebody asked me a question in the chat and I told them that we are looking at electric fire engines. We've never had, a department head come to us saying, hey, I want options for vehicles. Normally we have to go to them and be like, hey, these are the options that we have found for some of your fleet. But we got the fire chief said, hey, is there like an electric fire engine? I think I saw something in Wisconsin. Can we do that here? And we were like, yeah, we can. We will definitely look into that for you. So the fact that people are not only more okay with having EVs, but are actively looking for ways to electrify their fleet, that's been a shock and really incredible.
That's awesome. Hopefully we'll see some electric fire trucks running around soon. I know that we're definitely moving more into the medium and heavy duty space with EVs. And I think that someone had made a comment in the chat as well about that. But it's just astounding to see how quickly we've gone from just a few options on the passenger side, light duty, to now talking about electrifying fire trucks. So
if I can, I wanted to respond to Ron in
Sure.
the comment section. I thought I recognized you, Ron. Hi. This one of the pole vault chargers will be going in the new Ritz Park. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. You are? Okay, great. So that's where it's going. Duke Energy has agreed to replace a utility pole. And so not only are they going to replace it, which is great for free, we don't have to pay for it, and pull it out a little bit so that we can use it as curbside for this space for EV charging. They're also going to make sure that it has enough capacity to be able to provide power to the new park. So the park that will be there will be able, there's going to be a stage so we can put lights on it and the community can use it however they want, but there'll be power there too. So we love when projects come together like that. Yes, and Duke is willing to do some nice things for us. We love you, Duke Energy, sometimes. So that'll be really great. If you want to hear more about that, I'm happy to send you some details.
Great, thanks for that response. So switching back over to Duke University, as the Duke gains more e-buses, are y'all looking to use them for grid balancing during the months that campus isn't in session?
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with them the other day about it. It's something that they don't offer right this second, but it's something that they're working on. Because since we're going to be eventually having 14 charging stations out there, we were looking at doing where we don't charge them during peak hours. But they're not there yet, but it's definitely something we're looking at doing. Right now, they're kind of off peak anyways when they charge, when they get off route, but we would like to have that option.
And are y'all, just to clarify, are y'all kind of running the buses on their routes and then they come back and they charge at a central location, or do they charge maybe, halfway through the day at a specific time? Just curious on kind of what the schedule is.
Right now, there's no need for us to do midday charging because the bus will get us through a whole shift, but they're just charging it after their shift's over. They park the bus, they hook it up and call it a night.
Yeah. All the pictures we shared in the presentation were actually taken in our sort of over by our transit building and where the buses are actually sitting and charging.
Great, thank you. So I think we've got a couple more minutes. I believe we're rejoining the main session at 11:10. So we'll have about 5 or so more minutes. If folks have additional questions, please feel free to keep them coming in the chat for our lovely speakers. And so I will switch back over to Erika real quick. Was your initial investment in electric vehicles expensive? Did you kind of start with maybe some newer options at the time that may have increased your initial investment? And have you kind of received a return on your investment since then?
So the city installed a couple of charging stations for a couple EVs that they had a couple years before I came on board. And then when I came on board, we used grant opportunities. I know that the CFAC grant was used for a while. I don't think that they do it anymore for the purchase of EVs. I'm not sure. Now we just use it for infrastructure. But we were able to use it to purchase some EVs, and then infrastructure. We've used that. So initially, I can't say, because I wasn't there, if it was expensive or not, but it was really only a couple. So I think it was okay, and it was doable. And really, just in the last few years, it's gotten more expensive. And, we were trying to use grants and stuff to help us with that. And now, actually, for fiscal year 22 and last year in fiscal year 21 was the first time that we actually had budget set aside, for us to use on sustainability projects. And it was for infrastructure as well as facility work, which was installing solar panels. So we got a healthy budget of about $4 million to do this work. So it's been really great to see that change from before, having to utilize grants and, kind of scrape together money where we could, to actually getting money set aside for us to do these projects. I think that means that myself and my team has done a really great job at, showing the need for sustainability and showing the benefit as well.
Definitely. Thanks for that response. That kind of helps put it in perspective, especially with kind of some of the earlier figures that you were citing as well. And it's great that you receive funding. So always good to get funds for infrastructure and vehicles. And I think too, as we start to see more vehicle models and, like we were saying earlier, the heavy duty and medium duty space as well, I think we'll definitely see some of those prices fluctuate as, there's competition and more models available. Great, thank you. So another question for Duke. What was your lead time after making the decision to purchase electric buses versus the actual delivery date?
Both of you 12. So we were a very early purchaser of our first two buses. Our initial lead time was 12 months to a year, of course, but we wound up not getting it again. We weren't a large purchaser. We were in the year and 6 month range. So it was a very, very hefty period that we did not anticipate. But again, we were able to get them in for one of our core academic year timeframes. But again, we anticipated getting it a little bit earlier, but due to some other delays with the logistics, we wound up getting them a little later than we anticipated.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And so I think we are about to wrap up. So I just wanted to say one last thank you to all of our presenters. A lot of really good information here.